Hey everyone. So, as many of you might know, if you've been watching this channel for a while, I often weave in my own practice and study of A Course in Miracles into my astrology teachings. A Course in Miracles is, for me, such a powerful and meaningful study, wisdom teaching, philosophy. I have a lot of respect for it. And I've wanted to speak about sort of the weaving of evolutionary astrology and A Course in Miracles, the way in which A Course in Miracles helps to further expand upon and reframe my understanding of astrology. I've been hesitant to do so because I have so much respect for A Course in Miracles and sort of the purity of its teachings that I haven't wanted to misrepresent it and just make too much of it, you know? When it organically comes through, I've been hesitant to just make a particular video on this. However, recently I was interviewed by Mystic Mag, and in this interview they asked a really well formulated question about how I work with A Course in Miracles, how I integrate that in my astrology practice. And I took a lot of time to respond to it. So I feel now is a great time to share this. I'm actually going to read to you my response, and you can see the entire interview in the description below. I'll post a link to the Mystic Mag website. In general, the interview was great. I mean, they asked a lot of really relevant and engaging questions, so I enjoyed it. Here is this question about A Course in Miracles. So I'm going to read the question, and instead of reading the article, which I just attempted to do, and it didn't feel very fun, I'm going to just organically share my answer to this question. How do you integrate the wisdom teachings of A Course in Miracles into your approach to astrology? How do these two disciplines complement each other? So let me just take a moment to really define the essence of evolutionary astrology and the essence of A Course in Miracles, and then just give an example, a specific example of how they work together. The basics of evolutionary astrology is it looks at this lifetime as a forum through which the soul is playing out its own evolutionary dynamics. The teachings are this life is created as a result of desire. We create the human experience, the body, the personality, the circumstances we come into, the total time, space, reality of our incarnation as the vehicle for our own soul evolution. This is the way that we as a soul play out our own desires. What are desires? I'm wanting something. I'm wanting to know myself through some kind of experience. I create the human vehicle for that experience to occur. And Jeff Green teaches that evolution is the gradual exhaustion of all desire. And really it's a matter of exhausting desires and then generating new ones, exhausting those, an ongoing process until the only remaining desire is the desire to reunite with the source, to know who we are, right? The predominant concentration on what are we, what is the truth, right? And we can thus interpret all experiences of our life, everything as reflecting us back to ourselves. What am I working out within myself? What are the desires that I'm working through? A big part of the evolutionary astrology work is asking the question, why? Why from the perspective of, why is this happening through the lens of my own ongoing evolutionary needs? How does this experience point me back to myself? Not why from the perspective of any kind of shame or blame, right? But why in a way that brings us back to what is my soul program? How can I take full responsibility for my own soul evolution? So evolutionary astrology is a very beautiful and powerful modality in that it's absolutely 100% in pointing back to the soul as the bottom line for all experience. And that this life journey is about our ongoing awakening process. So from a pure understanding, there are no victims. Every soul's journey and every experience that the soul manifests for itself is a part of the program, even when it's really hard to understand. And I see that with the awareness that we experience hard things, bad things happen. Sometimes horrific things happen. But as we tune in more deeply to the dimension of the soul, we ultimately, in the end of the day, come back to ourselves and we ask the question, how can I evolve? And that's what's most important here. So when we interpret all of the planets within the evolutionary astrology paradigm, we're essentially interpreting everything through that lens, through that framework. It's a very helpful and useful framework to approach astrology. Now, A Course in Miracles is a particular philosophical framework, perspective, that says this life in its entirety is a projection, it's an illusion, it's a dream. The world that we see is not a fact, it's a reflection. Everything's a reflection of what's in the mind. So the Course in Miracles is a very powerful, non-dual approach with zero exceptions. And this is why I just have a lot of respect for it, because it's not yet fully realized. I'm studying it and practicing it. And the Course is constantly teaching to apply the same practice into every experience. It's called A Course in Miracles because it's about becoming miracle-minded. It's regarding every experience as essentially the same, where no problem, no challenge, no experience is inherently harder or more challenging or more of an issue than any other. And a big teaching in the Course is there are no order of difficulties in miracles, and likewise no order of hierarchy in problems. Right? A miracle is what happens when we give over any experience, any. Doesn't matter how big or small the problem we think it is. And we offer it back to the source beyond our limited thinking for reinterpretation and for guidance, as opposed to using our own conditioning, which is predominantly unconscious, to decide what things are and what things are for. We really loosen the world from everything that we think it is, and we allow our minds to become trained. So it's becoming trained to become miracle-minded. And so it really addresses like where we have grievances. Where are we holding on to separation? The idea of every problem is the same because it reflects the same mistake, the belief in separation. And every correction, every solution is the same, which is the return to unity. And this is applied, again, indiscriminately. And miracles happen when we orient back to the source, the truth, which is inherently unconflicted, always unconflicted. And we allow that to shape and guide our thinking, guide our minds in all circumstances. So the Course itself, it doesn't address the specifics of our life because the nature of the teaching itself is this is universal. And it's really our own decision that says, I'm not going to apply it here. This problem is too great, but I'll apply it here, right? We want to hold on to some problems, some challenges, and not realize that the possibility for miracles is innate within every experience. And that's what the training teaches us. A really important emphasis in the Course in Miracles is the emphasis on time. It says time itself exists only for our learning. And I want to share one particular quote that I share in this article. And I've shared it a couple times in my teachings here. From the Principles of Miracles in the beginning. The purpose of time is to enable you to learn how to use it constructively. It is thus a teaching device and a means to an end. Time will cease when it is no longer useful in facilitating learning. Likewise, a very common statement that's made in the workbooks, in the 365 lessons that you can practice every day, is, practicing this lesson and devoting your time throughout your day to this practice will save you thousands of years. Statements like that, because it really recognizes that time can be utilized with our own free will. And that time itself will repeat itself over and over and over again and be available for us for our learning. Now, let's apply that to Saturn. It's an incredibly beautiful, compassionate perspective. It doesn't change a thing about the evolutionary astrology perspective. It really enhances it and adds this beautiful, forgiving perspective. It says this whole world, the world that we're experiencing, time itself, it's not original reality. It's just this illusory construct that we think we're having and that we're learning and experiencing within it. And the purpose of it is to use it for the correcting of our minds, for our healing, for our self-remembering. And the degree to which we choose to learn it is really up to us. And this is actually another quote that I think is really essential that brings us home. I end the article with this quote. This is from the third book, which is the Manual for Teachers in the course. As the course emphasizes, you are not free to choose the curriculum or even the form in which you will learn it. You are free, however, to decide when you want to learn it. That's such an essential statement. It's like going to school. The curriculum is there. You're in 11th grade. The curriculum is there. It's a part of you can say it's a part of the soul program. And if you don't learn it, you'll just repeat 11th grade. That's it, right? We're not free to choose the curriculum. We can say from an evolutionary astrology perspective, that comes with the soul's evolutionary program, but we are free to choose to engage it. And that's also where EA teaches evolutionary astrology. We really, at the end of the day, have two choices: to cooperate or resist evolutionary necessity. It's the same way of really saying what I just read from the course. And so when we fail in our learning, it's just that. And, this perspective really offers such a helpful reframe and healing of where we might associate a lot of shame and judgment and harshness and that taskmaster quality that many of us have learned to associate with Saturn, have learned to associate with life. It corrects all of that harshness and says, first of all, that's not helpful, right? That's not a helpful perspective. And really, I think perspectives are a matter of helpful or not in the end of the day. It doesn't actually allow us to learn and to grow from our experiences. Shame itself is a way to not learn. It's a way of keeping us from really learning from our failures and simply saying, oh, that was a mistake. How can I do this better? And when we recognize that this whole experience is about healing our minds, forgiveness, we recognize we're all in jail. Where we have our grievances, the obstacles to love, the obstacles to forgiveness, that's where we are enslaved by our own minds. And then time-space experience is this template through which we can heal that. I just think that's so beautiful. So we can look at Saturn issues, any Saturn issue, wherever Saturn is in the chart, and really hold this deeply respectful and honoring question for that individual soul, right? How is this life experience and its limitations and its challenges, right? The do not pass go, do not collect 200. How is it all an opportunity for a correction of the mind? How can we reframe the harshness, the challenges, the judgments, right? All that we often experience within the Saturn archetype. How can we reframe it as an opportunity for healing and forgiveness? So this is just one example really highlighting the Saturn archetype in the relationship between A Course in Miracles and evolutionary astrology. Of course, evolutionary astrology is a particular philosophy and modality that identifies the specific curriculum of the soul, right? Like, this is the specific dynamics that the soul is working through. Here are the particular soul that it's very individuated in that way. And you use it in that way. You do a session with someone, you really meet their individual soul reality. The thing that's unique about A Course in Miracles, which is really what allows you to apply it. We can apply it to evolutionary astrology just as much as we can really apply the course to any modality, is that the course is universal. It doesn't differentiate between the curriculums. It doesn't regard any curriculum, any unique form or expression of it as different from any other. The forms are different. The timings, the contours, they have their different flavors. But it's the same lesson plan for everyone, the same learning goal, we can say, for everyone. And we all have the same choice to learn it. And time really relates to each of us in the same rule. It follows the same rule in the same way, even though the forms are different. So applying this totally universal non-dual perspective that's indiscriminate to any person, any experience, into this modality that is very individually soul focused is to me so beautiful and very helpful. We can really take any astrological planet and reframe it in a way that's further enhanced and sort of expounded upon in a loving, kind, forgiving way through the lens of A Course in Miracles. And I just find in my own work, in my own practice, the more I'm on my journey, I find that the teachings of the Course in Miracles almost like they hug the teachings of evolutionary astrology and frame it in this really helpful way, as it's really, the point of it is to reframe everything in that way. So thank you for watching. And once again, if you want to actually read how I responded to this and other questions as well, I speak about music and other things, check out that article in the description below.